Alrighty, so we did a stream earlier today, and I was able to finally beat floor 3 of Ratatoskr, so I wanted to talk about that a little bit. We're going to show some of the run. I'm going to talk about Valenti, give my thoughts and opinions. First and foremost, I have been getting a couple of questions asking what gear should I put on Valenti. For the moment, I was using some crit defense pieces that were right here because the red Valenti, actually, when you build her, she wants crit defense. So I was using 2 crit defense pieces during this run that you're going to see, but since then I have heard from several people that crit resistance is definitely the way to go. So I've already made 1 crit resistance piece. It's not the best you've ever seen, but I'm currently trying to get anvils so that way I can re-roll this one as well. So that way I can have crit resistance on this piece as well, because the character has pretty decent crit defense. It's not great by any stretch of the imagination, but if you can go crit resistance, hopefully the crits will hit less, and then you'll be in a decent position there. The gear that I'm using on my Elizabeth as well is a little important, because Elizabeth is the one that you want to get targeted the most, if at all possible. I actually don't know that it's going to show me my the gear that I have. It's this set right here. This is the one that I'm using during the run. It is defense on top and bottom. The rune actually has recovery rate rolls, so that way your Tarmio link will heal you more, and then I have crit resistance pieces in the middle as well. I might actually just throw this one over to Valenti so that way I can go ahead and UR it, because I'm probably going to need it, but I don't know. We'll I'll deal with all of that stuff later. But the new Valenti is very helpful, don't get me wrong. She is not going to do exactly what I was hoping she would do, which is just make the fight a lot more consistent and easy. It's definitely it's going to take a little bit of the RNG out of the fight. We were using the Valenti and Gloxinia strat with Purgatory melee, or Demon King melee, and Elizabeth, of course. So we're not using Jelly King, which one of the things that you have to get used to when you swap that team around is that Jelly King actually does give you basic stats for the Sins characters, which is kind of nice. And Valenti's passive, you have to build it up a little bit for you to actually get the good attack-related stats. So in the beginning of the fight, you're not going to be doing nearly as much damage as you were if you were using the Jelly King team, but it will end up building up and doing pretty decent overall. The HP-related stats were okay. I do think that the lifesteal and the other stats are pretty good, but you're still going to take a good amount of damage in this fight. She's not like a perfect unit by any stretch of the imagination. I don't know. I like her, don't get me wrong, but she's definitely not, this isn't going to be like, hey, if I pull for Valenti, I'll be able to beat floor 3. It's not that simple. There's a lot of mechanics and stuff like that you have to learn during the fight. One of the things that you're going to want to know is if you're using the Gloxinia strat in Phase 3 of Floor 1, you're not actually going to be able to move him off the left log stump unless you use Valenti's ultimate to move him back to the middle, and then you use Gloxinia's bleed to move him to the right. So that is a little bit of a weird thing that you have to do, but for the most part, the Gloxinia is nice because you get defense-related stats and everything. So this is going to be directly pulled from the stream. I was actually talking to Durs, which is, I think he's in 7 Kings, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's what he said. But he has beaten this fight, I think he said roughly around 15 times or so, because he's helped other people do it on their accounts and everything. So he was kind of helping me coach through it. Obviously, I was hoping I would be able to just beat this fight outright by myself. Floor 3, good to go. We were able to beat floors 1 and 2 last night during the stream when we summoned for Valenti, but I tried a couple of different times last night to beat floor 3. It didn't end up working out. I think the thing that I'm going to have to get used to the most is just... I guess I'll just lower the volume on this and let it play a little bit. But the thing that I'm going to have to get used to the most is not rushing the fight. Floor 3 is the biggest stall fest I have ever seen in a demonic beast. So if you don't know, the idea behind the fight is on phase 1, you're going to have to use all 3 debuff cards that you have. So you're going to have to apply shock, bleed, poison. He's going to move to the right totem. Once he moves to the right one, you need to kill the left and the middle totems off, so that way it will actually remove the immortality from the beast, and then you can... you just basically stall at that point, because when he's on the right totem, every turn that he stays on the right totem, he's going to gain a debuff on himself that lowers his all stats. You basically just have to sit there and let him all stat lower for like 6 or 7 turns. So it's like a really long, like, you know, slog. But the idea behind that, I guess, is that you're going to be using this time to sort of build up your cards. So you want to make sure that you have all 3 of the debuffs back in your hand, so Poison, Shock, Bleed. It's preferable not to use the ultimates to try to apply the debuffs if possible, because if you're using the ultimates, it can make him move to a random tile, which is really bad, so you don't want him to move to the wrong one. Phase 1, you want him to be on the right. Phase 2, you want him to be on the left. And then Phase 3 is a different monster in of itself. But so the idea here is going into Phase 2, you ideally want to have 2 Liz Cleanse cards, because he's going to apply debuffs in Phase 2 that are incredibly annoying. Once you get him over to the left stump, he's actually going to, he'll start to stance up every couple of turns, and then every single attack that he does basically applies the red food poisoning debuffs to you, so you have to have a way to get those off of you. Luckily, the stance isn't incredibly annoying. It does have reflect on it, and it reflects 100% of damage dealt, but these characters really aren't doing a whole lot of damage at all. Melee is the only one that you can even really consider to be a DPS for this fight, so ideally, you should be able to throw a couple of Valenti cards out if you don't get the cleanses that you need. That way you can actually, because the way her passive works is every time she uses a card, it's going to cleanse off 1 debuff from each character, if I'm not mistaken. So let me skip forward. You can see we end up getting 6 different stacks of the all-stat lower here, and then I finally am able to just kind of whittle him down and kill him off in that phase. Going into Phase 2, we do use all 3 debuff cards. This is actually a failed run. I'll show you the better run here in a second, but you basically use all 3 of your debuff cards. It'll move him to the left. I've been told that if you just randomly throw out ultimate cards, it is a bad thing, because if you use an ultimate, it could make him move to a random stump, which is not good, because you want him to stay on the left here on Phase 2. If you move, I think each different stump has its own sort of effect, so if he stays on the left stump, he will apply 1 gray food poisoning to himself each turn that he stays on. Once he gains 3, each of those is going to do 15% of his max HP, if I'm not mistaken, per turn. So once he has 3 of those on, you can stall a couple more turns, and then he'll either kill himself off, or in our scenario, he was typically around 11 to 12% HP by the time we got our hand sort of set up. So at that point, we were basically able to just go ahead and kill ourselves and then move into the next phase. So it's all about stalling, not wasting too many cards, making sure that your hand is basically just as set up as it can be going into the next phase. This was a failed run because we just ended up getting like basically 0 cleanses. I ended up resetting, and every time I did, I showed the dog cam, which was kind of fun. But yeah, he is just a mess. If he moves to the wrong totems, if your ultimates don't do enough damage, because like you basically just need to get him to the totem he needs to be on. Don't debuff him, don't ult him, and make sure that when you do, like, you know, use big attacks and ultimates and stuff, it's enough to kill off the other totems, so that way he can't move to them. It's a mess. I absolutely hate this fight. It's like 6 to 7, maybe like 10 turns to stall out of Phase 1. And then once you get to Phase 2, you're going to end up moving him, trying to kill off the totem, stall for another 3 to 4 turns, so that way he gains the stacks that he needs, if not maybe even like 5-6 turns, so that way he actually is able to whittle down his HP. It is a mess. It is so bad. I think around the 27-minute mark. Yeah, see, I've already lost Valenti at this point on Phase 3. So let's go ahead and skip forward. We're going to go to the winning run. This is already Phase 3. You can see how long it takes all the way up until this very end piece here. So, is this when okay, yeah, this is when I like first push into Phase 3 here. So, Phase 3 has a load of immortalities on, and that's going to be a big issue. The idea here is that you need to get rid of the left totem if possible. I don't think we end up using all of our debuffs or anything. We don't even go into it with debuffs, just so that way we can have the extra damage dealing cards we need from melee to make sure that we can kill off the totems that we don't want. So left totem is the worst totem. I think he starts to stance up, and he like locks you down, and you basically can't move him, if I'm not mistaken, when you get him on the left totem. Sorry, I keep calling him totem, stumps, pillars. I call them everything. But You need to kill the left stump if possible. That is the worst stump for him to be on. If he's on the middle stump for long enough, he will start to lose max HP. This one is pretty helpful. You typically want to get at least 2 of these max HP lowers on him if you can, because that is going to make it to where he's a little squishier because he has a ton of HP on this phase, so that way you can actually deal enough damage to keep him low enough. Because if you don't have him below 30%, I think they were telling me he needs to be 30% or lower, or else he's going to gain like 40% HP back or something like that per turn, which is ridiculous. Like, there's so many mechanics to this thing, I literally cannot understate it. This fight is still incredibly difficult. There's a lot of RNG that goes into it. You just have to play it as smart as you can and hope that RNG pays off. Like, if you don't get the Liz cards that you need to keep her ultimate in rotation, it can be a big, hindrance. If he just, for whatever reason, he will decide to just hit my Valenti 2 or 3 times per turn, and she's not the, the strongest character. I have that, gear set up on Liz for a reason. It's because she can actually take the hits and everything. He doesn't really go for Gloxinia much, which is good. He's pretty tanky in general. He'll get the random hit out on him every so often, but for the most part, as long as he's not like absolutely stacking attacks on Valenti, I'm pretty much good to go. But it still ends up being a little bit of a problem. I think hopefully they'll come out with like a card set or something for this fight in the near-ish future, because this thing is terrible. Going forward, I think you can see, I think we end up using bleeds and shocks and stuff like that to keep him on the middle pillar. He just kind of like keeps leaving and coming back to the middle. We have a decent amount of HP, taken on him at this point. You can see he has 2 of these HP lowers. I think I reset here just because I'm scared because he moved to the left pillar here. So let's skip forward a little bit. The idea here, I can't remember exactly what we were doing. I think I'm just trying to make sure I kill off the left pillar so that way he can't move there. So we use the ult, do a little bit of damage. I use the Liz ultimate so that way I gain the attack related, which, by the way, ultimate move gate or ultimate levels is definitely super, super helpful in this fight. My melee is only 1/6. My Liz is only like 2/6 or 3/6. I can't remember exactly which one it is, but they're really low. I've luckily gotten 1 extra copy of Valenti, so she's 2/6. The Valenti ultimate, by the way, can be very helpful because it gives her 50% damage reduction, so that can help if he does end up attacking her too many times. So it'll help out from time to time. And then I do have a 6/6 Gloxinia, but honestly, Gloxinia is not doing a whole lot of damage and stuff in general, so it doesn't really even matter. So I do have pretty low ultimates for this team, which is not great. Ideally, I could get more attack-related stats with the Liz ultimate, or I could do even more damage and guarantee kills on the stumps and stuff like that if I had higher melee ultimate, but I'm pretty much as bare bones as it gets here when it comes to ult levels. I do have 15.8 mil box DC at the moment, so I do have a lot of extra stats and everything, but, just to give you sort of like a little bit of perspective there, this is not easy. So I think we're just going to go ahead and skip forward a little bit. You can see that he's on the right pillar here. Once he's on the right pillar, he will actually start to put gray debuffs on your team. Once you have gray debuffs on your team, depending on how many you have, I think that's how many immortality buffs he removes from himself. So, like, if each of my characters have 1 gray food poisoning debuff on me, he'll lose 4 of the immortality buffs, and then he'll keep applying those every few turns. So if I have 2 on everybody, I think he loses 8. At least that seems to be how it's played out for me so far. If that's not right, try to correct me in the comments if you know. But it just seems like you do have to end up putting some gray debuffs on yourself, because that's the only way that it actually will remove the immortalities here. I think we go for the kill on the middle totem here, because we already have the 20% HP related, or I'm not sure, maybe these are 20% each. I'm not positive on that. I probably should have checked that at some point. But we have 2 of the HP related stat lowers on him. So he's getting a bit weaker. I'm going to try to kill off the middle totem if I'm not mistaken here. I don't know. I think the melee ult and everything is enough, but I can't remember if this is the turn that I actually kill it off or not. So we ult here. It's not the worst thing in the world if he goes back to the middle totem, just because, he'll just lose more HP-related stats. And I don't have any of the gray debuffs on at the moment anyway, so ideally, you know, I'm not going to be taking damage every single turn other than his attacks. So that can be kind of annoying. It's just a huge balancing act. It is awful. I absolutely despise this fight. It took me roughly around 3 to 4 hours for the entirety of, like, counting yesterday's floor 1 and 2 clears, a couple of tries on floor 3, and then today I was able to beat it in roughly like a little over an hour or so. But this was with help from somebody who's already beat it before, so I'm just going to have to get better at making sure that I've got the right cards. I'm not wasting cards I don't need to be using and everything. It is, the learning curve on this fight is just nothing like any of the other demonic beasts. And the other demonic beast, I feel like I can throw out some cards and stuff if I don't need them, or, you know, do whatever I need to do to try to, you know, just have a good hand, or like other characters on the team can at least deal some damage. But with this fight, Melly's the only one dealing any decent damage. You basically have 3 support characters. Some of them are way squishier than others, so they can die if they get targeted too much. There's so much stuff you have to worry about. It is insane. So at this point, we have killed off the middle totem. It's not, you know, we're in a really good spot here. And the whole time, Durs was like, yeah, like, he was like coaching me through this thing. He was confident that once we did, I think it's this next turn, that we had basically won at that point, because I have a couple of ults in hand. The idea here was I needed to get him below 30% without using the melee cards if possible, so that way I could double melee card the next turn. If I was able to pull one, which I did, which is great. So you can see I think I actually reset here because I used the wrong I used the wrong Gloxinia Bleed card, but I used double ult. Luckily, Valenti's ult isn't actually too bad. The increased damage dealt is not like pay to win or anything, so it's 50% increased damage dealt that she applies, I think, before the ultimate goes off, so that helps. I'm now below 30%. You'll see him gain a decent little chunk of HP back. I want to say his damage cap on this phase is 33% or so, or maybe it's 30. But with the ultimate that I have and the single target, I'm able to I'm able to actually clear this thing. So I think, let me swap over to the audio track where it's me talking, and then you can kind of gauge my reaction here. But that is the fight. It is so annoying. Valenti's not going to straight up, like, clear this for you. It's not going to just be, like, super, super easy. I don't know. It's tough. It's really hard for me to recommend summoning for this while it's still this hard, but she is going to help. So that is the fight. Hopefully if you guys are fighting this too, you're having at least somewhat of a decent time. My card draw apparently was terrible. I could not seem to get the right cards that I needed most of the time, which ended up helping stall the fight even longer. But I don't know. If you're going for this thing, I wish you luck. Durs was saying something like only 1% of the player base is even able to beat this at the moment, or maybe even less than 1%, which I would believe, because this thing is ridiculous. I don't know if it's worth the trouble, but I did get the Mael relic today, and it feels really nice to have that relic. It is a really nice relic to have. He does a lot of damage with it, so that's pretty much it for me. I would say final thoughts are Valenti is cutting a little bit of RNG out of the fight. It definitely changes the fight a little bit more, so there's a couple things that you have to kind of get used to over the old team, like, you know, just a couple of changes here and there with, like, using her cards correctly, and, like, she cleanses off some stuff, whereas you won't have stats from King, and there's just a couple of weird things that you kind of have to sort of, like, get used to with the new team. But she's pretty good. I'm not gonna say she's like fantastic or anything, because I still feel like it's just about as much RNG as it was, but I think some people who've like got a little bit more experience under their belt are saying that it is less RNG. It's just still an annoying fight, so hopefully we get a little bit more support for it. Obviously going forward, I can only hope that it gets easier and easier, which I imagine it will. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Feel free to subscribe if you haven't already. If you have any questions or anything, leave them down in the comments. I'll try to answer them to my best of my ability. I'm not the best at this fight yet, but I'm going to keep trying to get better at it, so that way I don't need a coach to help me beat the floor. So shout out to Durs. Big, you know, big help, honestly. I don't know that I would have been able to beat it as quickly as this if I didn't have some help. So feel free to subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching. I will see you guys tomorrow.